Often when I'm listening to music that I like, I come across a section that just sort of sounds vaguely Japanese. It's sort of like, have I heard this on my Game Boy before? Or is this in a Miyazaki film? Or something about it just sounds vaguely Japanese, right? I think a lot of artists are able to access this sound pretty frequently. And a great example is Chan. They do this all the time. For example, in the intro to Suda, the intro to Water Slide, and even this section of Sleepy Tea. All kind of remind me of stuff that I heard when I was growing up playing Nintendo games. So naturally, I wanted to figure out how to mimic this in my own composition. How do I access some of these modern Japanese archetypes and utilize them in songs that I write? I analyzed some of my favorite Japanese composed music in order to find an answer. And I think a good way to kick this off is sort of a TLDR of my findings. I wrote a lot of my findings from this research into a song that I called Mint Chip, like the ice cream. It's partially inspired by this song called Triste by Jobim, that in the bossa nova realm, it sort of uses everything in the typical bossa nova harmonic bag of tricks.
Triste é saber que ninguém pode viver de ilusão, que nunca vai ser, nunca vai dar. O sonhador tem que acordar.
And I wanted to do something similar in this space of anime music and video game music. So what are the hallmarks of this modern Japanese aesthetic? I think that it's a really wide set of music, and that to thoroughly understand it would be to thoroughly understand music theory itself, essentially. However, I identified 4 main devices that I came across really commonly in the examples that I analyzed. So let's go through those 4. Okay, so let's get the easiest one out of the way first. This one you can learn about in a zillion places on YouTube and on the web. The 4 chords in every anime theme, etc. It's 4, 5, 3, 6. And it's true, this is in the majority of anime themes, so there's kind of no wonder why it sounds so familiar. So as we can see in here, this is sort of the easiest tool for us to reach for to get that modern Japanese sound for a little bit. In a lot of the songs that I analyzed, I found an abbreviated version of this progression without the 5 chords, so just 4, 3, 6. And then there would often be a cadence to lead you back to the 4. So a 2-5 or diatonic walking back down from 6 to 4, 6, 5, 4, etc. Sakamoto uses this progression in his song Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. Hisaishi also uses it in One Summer's Day from Spirited Away, leading back to the 4 chord with a 2-5. And in the realm of rock, Toe also uses it in their song I Dance Alone. It turns out that we can take these 3 chords, the 3 chord, the 4 chord, and the 6 chord, and swim between them in lots of different orders. In Pyramid by Uchi Kombini, they do exactly this, and they try out 3 different permutations of these 3 chords. The second common progression I'm going to talk about is 4-5-6, or what I lovingly call the seal progression. Hisaishi uses this progression in The Legend of Ashitaka from Princess Mononoke. Mononoke? We also hear this progression in the theme for the first season of Bleach. And we also see this progression in Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence by Sakamoto. In fact, there are a lot of songs that use both the progressions that I've talked about so far, and this Sakamoto song is a good first example of that. The third device I'm going to talk about is the 6 major chord, and I'll get into why I'm using these curly braces in a second here. Now, stick with me because this is going to get into slightly more advanced theory. If anything's murky at all, I recommend checking out some of the concepts that I mentioned on Wikipedia. The articles on music theory there are surprisingly good, and I'll admit that I actually learned some of the concepts that I'm teaching you right now from Wikipedia. So you'll notice on the piano that in order to have a 6 major chord, in order to have an A major within the context of our C major scale, we need to add a black note, we need to add a C sharp. So because of that, we're really not in C major anymore. And in fact, we're not even in A minor, it's relative minor. We're in A major now. This is a concept called a borrow chord, and that's exactly what it sounds like. We borrow this A major chord from the A major scale so that we're temporarily in A major, and then we switch back to C major. Borrow chords are a subset of a more general topic called modal interchange, where I'm keeping the same root note, but I'm changing the mode of my scale. And in this context, you can think of it as I'm changing from A Aeolian to A Ionian. So from A minor, aka C major, to A major. So in a lot of this Japanese music, there's a strong tendency to want to end a chord progression on a major chord, even if that major chord doesn't necessarily fit into the parent scale. It's really not unlike what Bach used to do back in the day when he would have a song in a minor key, and then when he got to a 1 chord to end the song, instead of an A minor, he would play an A major at the end. And in classical theory, that's known as the Picardy third.
The Picardy third. What is the Picardy third? Picardy third, Picardy third, Picardy third, Picardy third.
Koji Kondo uses this a lot in the music for Ocarina of Time, often at the end of a seal progression. So when we land on that 6 chord, it's a 6 major instead. So when we land on that 6 major chord and imply that different scale, it sort of brings us to this new place and it sounds nice and fresh. And what can be really nice is that when we land on that 6th chord, we can play with this ambiguity that's in everybody's ears, the fact that we can land on it either as a 6 minor or as a 6 major, and actually land on it as a 6 sus, so we don't know which one it is. And we can do that for 1 bar and then resolve it to a 6 major or a 6 minor. This band I like called Fox Capture Plan does this a lot. In fact, let's check out their song called Butterfly Effect, in which they use all 3 of the devices that we've talked about so far. Okay, so one last device here. This one's a bit rarer, and it's actually my favorite out of the 4 that I'm going to teach you. It is the flat 7 major chord. Now, in the context of C major, this might seem super random. Why would we do that? It makes more sense to think of it in terms of the relative minor for C major, A minor, because in that context, this is a flat 2 major chord. Now, that's really just fancy speak for we go from a minor chord, A minor, we go up a half step and make it major. From the perspective of music theory, this is often referred to as the Neapolitan chord. It's a borrow chord from A Phrygian instead of A Aeolian. It's the 2nd chord from A Phrygian based on that B flat there. That theme from Princess Mononoke earlier uses this, and it was kind of where I got the idea for using it in Mint Chip. This other Fox Capture Plan song uses that too, as well as the suspended arrival on the 6th chord that I was talking about earlier. To me, this is just an awesome chord to throw in there to get a new sense of dynamism, throw in a bit of a new flavor into your progression. So now we can return to Mint Chip knowing our 4 devices and kind of review the 4 things that we've learned. So there you have it, 4 devices to access this modern Japanese aesthetic. Like I said earlier, do not consider this a comprehensive review of modern Japanese music. I do not claim to be the king of the super weebs. I am probably just a 4 on the otaku scale. Yeah. But like I said, it's a really wide field of music theory, and to fully understand it, you would basically just need to understand music theory as a whole. So it's a great place for us to adventure around together. All that said, I'm super curious to learn more about this stuff, so please send me examples of interesting Japanese music that you like and you're kind of wondering what's going on harmonically there. In my research, I found that there's really a lot there. So what I'm hoping is that with this video, we have sort of a basis to talk about these songs, and that I can break down some of the songs that I talked about over the course of this video in more detail, because each of them actually has cooler stuff that's going on that's what I really want to get to, and that's what I really want to teach you. And if you got to the end of this video, thanks for sticking around. Please let me know what you think and where we want to go from here. Thanks a lot, guys. And until next time, 加呢